Everyone loves playing dragons in Magic the Gathering, and thanks to Wizards of the Coast, we get to receive a ton of new cards for our mighty dragons in DragonStorm. So in honor of DragonStorm, I have decided to create this video so that all of us Magic the Gathering dragon players can share our dragon decks in one video, so that people that are looking to get into dragons can take a look at all the various dragons that we play and use this video as a resource to build their own dragon decks. And I'm really looking forward to reading your comments about the dragons that you play, because I may actually build some dragon decks out of what I see inside the comment section below. So let me know what you're playing or what you're planning on building and how you play the deck, so that I know how I'm gonna build my version of the deck if I think that it sounds as fun as I'm imagining it would play. But when we talk about dragons, not every dragon deck is a dragon tribal commander deck. So the first dragons we're gonna go over in my collection are cards that are not necessarily dragon tribal decks. And remember, if any of these dragons in particular receive about 20 comments as a request for a deck tech, I'll make a deck tech specifically for the dragon commanders that you all want to see. I really hope that this video encourages people to look at dragons inside their collection and to build dragon decks, because they are so much fun. But the first dragon that we're going to go over today is Zeatora, the Incinerator, which is an incredibly fun demon dragon to play that allows you to sacrifice another creature at the end of your turn, and then you deal damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So we're just sacrificing our creatures, and generally we sacrifice our creatures to buff our other creatures so that we can sacrifice that creature to continue to buff other creatures and create treasure tokens. And we end up creating so much treasure inside this deck that it almost feels like we're casting spells for free. Zeatora is incredibly fun and pretty easy to build as well, because Zeatora is just a great engine all by himself. The next card we have here is Crosis, the Purger. This is actually a planeswalker, kind of like a Nico Bolas style planeswalker commander deck. I really just use Crosis to deal damage to my opponents so that I can take a look at their hand, and if they have any cards that would destroy my planeswalkers, I force them to discard them. This deck is kind of oppressive. I really don't play it that much. I just think the art over here for Crosis is just so cool. Like, if I could be a dragon, I would want to look like that. Like, that just seems so cool to me. Crosis the Purger is a very, very fun deck to play. For me, at least. Maybe not for my opponents. But what is fun for my opponents is what we have here in Shadrix Silverquill. This is very much a group hug type deck, where our opponents are getting tokens, our opponents are buffing their own creatures, but we're just forcing our opponents to kind of deal damage to each other. Shadrix is a really good blocker. It has double strike as well, so it kind of keeps our opponents from attacking us. And while that's not happening, while they're not attacking us, we play cards that force our opponents to take damage as they attack other players, or as they attack us, or as they play creatures, which then puts us in a position at the end of the game. We just have assembled so many stacked pieces on the board where our opponents can't really, our opponents take more damage playing the game on their turns than they do from us on our turn, and they just scoop, and it's just a lot of fun. Very fun group hug deck. I don't see too many people playing this. If you want to have just play a deck that's going to make everyone laugh and have fun at your table, Shadrix is definitely the way to go. The next card we have here is Velomachus Lorehold, which is an incredibly fun dragon. Has haste, so the moment he enters the battlefield, he's attacking. He basically just attacks, and you exile cards that give you extra combat steps. And I've had instances where I'm able to attack with Velomachus, I gain an extra combat. I attack again, I gain an extra combat. I attack again, I gain an extra combat. And while that's happening, I can double his power, so he's dealing 10 damage at a time, 15, 20 damage at a time. And it just turns to a thing where every time he attacks, there's an opportunity that it's going to trigger to something that just ends the game as you continuously get more combat steps. But there's also times where you whiff and you don't get any extra combat steps, and then you lose horribly because he costs 7 mana. So this deck is very, it's either a 0 or 100%. And talking about decks that are either 0 or 100%, whenever I play this deck, people just do not allow me to play this card. We have Kevin, the Questing Dragon. He can't be countered. Devour 2, Flying, Mountain Walk, Rampage 2, Bushido 2, Tramp over Planeswalkers. Damage can't be prevented. Players can't gain life. Whenever Kevin deals combat damage to a player, gain control of target land that player controls. Untap that land. Can't be countered, but the moment he enters the battlefield, it definitely can be targeted with removal, which people tend to do. So you just play a lot of cards that ramp up the amount of red mana that you get so you can put Kevin into play as quickly as possible. Incredibly fun card to play. Definitely not that much of a fun card to play against. So I would definitely not recommend. If you want to print yourself a copy of Kevin Questing Dragon, I'll leave a link in the description below so you guys can print this card out yourself and go play against your friends. Incredibly oppressive card, but nonetheless very fun to play. Now, the rest of the cards that we have here are actual Dragon Tribal Commander decks. They all play pretty similarly, but differently at the same time. Some are more easier, some are more complicated. I think the first commander we're gonna go over is just the most obvious one, and that's the Dragon. Listen, the Dragon is a bit of an expensive card. I'm not made out of money, so I try to save money as much as I can everywhere I go. So I bought a Japanese version of this card to save money. You can also print a proxy of this card if you want to, or you can do what I did, get a Japanese version and just save a lot of money, use the rest of the money to get the dragons for your deck. When I have my Dragon deck, what I do is play a lot of dragons. It really feels like a mono red dragon deck, believe it or not, because what I'm basically doing is choosing the dragons that cost the least amount of mana. The Dragon reduces the cost of our dragons by 1 in the command zone. So I can play my 3 mana dragons on turn 2, my 4 mana dragons on turn 3, my 5 mana dragons on turn 4. And when we do that, we immediately put a ton of pressure on our opponents because these dragons tend to have haste. And we can just start attacking people for 4, 5, 6 damage right away. And it forces our opponents to use their removal on our creatures so that when we do get the opportunity to play the Dragon and he enters the battlefield, they don't really have enough removal left to kind of deal with him and the other dragons that we have inside the deck. There's also a minor sub-theme for life gain, so that as we're playing the Dragon, we gain 10 life. We get our other dragons onto the battlefield, we'll gain 4 life. Because the dragon entered, we'll create another dragon, which will gain us 4 more life, and so on and so forth. And it just really feels like when we get the Dragon into play, there's just way too much going on for people to deal with. And then if people try to target our dragons with removal, we'll play cards like Semester's End that'll bounce all of our dragons to leave the battlefield, and then they'll re-enter. And then when they re-enter, we gain all the life from all the dragons that we had re-enter. So we protect our dragons by flickering them, and it just turns into a thing where we just can gain like 80, 70 life in one turn, and it feels super good. I don't see people play Dragon like that too much, and it's so much fun to play. I love the Dragon. Dragon is great. Next card we have here is the playmat that I have, which is Taigam. Listen, this deck has gone through so many iterations. In the original iteration, I had some dragons inside here, but I would play cards that would give my creatures indestructible, and then I would cast board wipes with Taigam because it says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, if Taigam attacked this turn, that spell gains rebound. So it creates a situation where I attack, all my creatures are indestructible, mind you. I then wipe the board. And then because the board has been wiped, that card gains rebound. So that card basically is sitting on the stack and it's gonna get cast. So as it goes back to my turn, I then wipe the board again immediately as the turn starts. And remember, instant and sorcery spells we control can't be countered by spells or ability because of Taigam. So it puts our opponents in a position where they don't want to play creatures, because if they play creatures, as it becomes our turn, the board's is gonna get wiped again and they're gonna lose all their creatures. Incredibly not fun. I definitely toned it down and replaced the board wipes and indestructible cards with cards that just allow me to play dragons at instant speed, and played more dragons. So These dragons inside this deck feel like they have haste because I'm casting them on my opponent's turn. I get to attack with them right away. Incredibly fun deck, and it's cool to know that they won't be countered. The next dragon we have here is Karthus, the Tyrant of Jund. Speaking of mean decks, this is another deck that I also had to tone down a little bit, where this was just a land destruction deck, and that doesn't seem, people don't like that. So I kind of toned it down to be a non-basic land destruction deck, where now I'm only just targeting non-basic lands. You have your Blood Moon, your other cards that just really hinder your opponent's ability to utilize their non-basic lands, because there are some dragons that enter and deal damage to your opponent's non-basic lands, and there's a heavy focus on destroying artifacts as well. So it really limits the amount of mana that our opponents have while we are ramping. We have 12, 15, 17, 20 mana on the board playing all of our dragons. And it's a great thing because towards the end of the game, if people are destroying all of our creatures, Karthus, remember, has haste. And I think that that's such an underrated thing in the command zone, because it turns into a thing where I can go to my turn, I'll cast Karthus, play him, attack, and deal 7 damage. My opponent can go to their turn, they can destroy Karthus, and then I can just go back to my turn. Okay, because I have 20 mana, I'll just play Karthus again, I'll attack. And Karthus just kind of feels like a 7 mana direct damage spell in the command zone, and feels towards the end of the game, because he has haste and 7 power, just feels very oppressive towards the end of the game. And it's just really fun for me to play, maybe not for other people to play because you're destroying all their mana, but it's just it's definitely a way of restricting mana and building a deck that just controls the game in an interesting way that people don't ordinarily see. And when they're good sports about it, they're like, wow, that was interesting. I don't want to play against it again, but it was cool. The next card we have is Savitri, the Dragon Master. Speaking of cards that are interesting, Savitri literally enters the battlefield and says, search your library for a dragon card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So Savitri is literally a tutor for dragons. So the dragons that we choose to play inside this deck are dragons that destroy our opponent's creatures, so that we can keep Savitri alive, so that we can continue to tutor for more dragons. I've never activated this ability before, but Savitri has the ability to destroy all non-dragon creatures, so it can be a one-sided board wipe. And Savitri also has the ability to force our opponents to pay life in order to attack us, which can be beneficial. And there are a lot of other cards like Hellish Rebuke inside this deck to force our opponents to take massive amounts of damage for attempting to attack us or dealing damage to us. And it's an interesting deck. Not a lot of people see it. I don't really play it too much, but when I do play it, I have a lot of fun, and it creates a lot of drama on the table because I'm just tutoring for dragons. And it just feels bad to watch me grab anything I want and put it into my hand, which is fun. Now, the second to last dragon deck we'll go over, I think, is the most beginner-friendly dragon deck that I have. I love playing commander decks that my first 3 turns are always the same exact thing. And when you're playing this deck, the first turn is always like land and at best Soul Ring. And then next turn, we just play the Acolyte of Bahamut on turn 2. Turn 3, we get Levon into play. And then because Levon is in play, as we go to turn 4, our first dragon spell we cast costs 2 less to cast, which means our 6 mana dragons are now 4 mana, which is a big difference. Means that we're putting 6/6 creatures on the board to deal damage to our opponents on turn 4. On turn 5, we can ramp with cards like Explosive Vegetation, which is going to give that dragon we played the turn earlier +4/+0 until the end of turn. It's just a really nice flow. Like, if I don't want to think too much when I'm playing my dragon deck, I'll play this deck because it's just so simple to play. And these cards are probably so cheap. Maybe not this one because of DragonStorm releasing, but Levon I'm sure is like 25 cents. Incredibly fun. And my last dragon deck that I have to hopefully inspire you to look in your collection to build your own dragon decks is Jagantha the Wellspring. Jagantha does have a companion, and it's going to be Keruga. So inside this deck, there are no cards that are less than 3 mana because Keruga says so. And then when Keruga enters, when we play Keruga, we draw cards for each permanent we control with mana cost 3 or greater, which This is a legendary creature tribal dragon commander deck. So the majority of the dragons inside this deck are either all 5 colors to cast, or it's just a bunch of legendary dragons, because Jagantha essentially taps for all 5 colors of mana. So dragons tend to cost a whole bunch of different colors periodically throughout all different color combinations. But with Jagantha in play, it doesn't matter, because Jagantha just adds all the colors we need, and it puts us in a place where the only thing we're tapping for is the colorless version of our mana, which at most will be 3 mana, generally speaking. In other words, we're putting Elder Dragons on the table for 3 mana, it feels like, at a time, just because we're tapping Jagantha for mana. We do have the ability inside the deck to untap Jagantha, to tap Jagantha again, and we do have other cards that are all 5 colors of mana, which we can then use to go ahead and just tap Jagantha, cheat those cards into play, and just really put a ton of creatures on the board and overwhelm our opponents, because our Elder Dragons tend to have very powerful abilities and game-changing abilities. And when we have so many cards that have game-changing abilities in play at one time, it really makes it difficult for our opponents to target a specific dragon on the board. But I will tell you, like, this is definitely, it's a good deck, but it's kind of janky. But when it gets going, it can be incredibly fun. When all your dragons are destroyed, you can play cards to mass reanimate all of your dragons and just put them into play and just end the game. Jagantha, extremely underrated and extremely amazing dragon commander. But what I'm looking forward to is knowing what you guys have and what you think are amazing dragon commanders, because if I see some really cool ones in the comments below, if I do a video like this in the future, I may end up building some of those dragon commanders. So if you have any questions or any comments or any cards that you would like to share, leave them in the comments below. Make sure you write your questions in a way that are easy, or your comments in a way that are easy to understand, so that all the new players that are associated with this channel can read your comments easily and effortlessly, so that they can get some ideas for building their own dragons in honor of DragonStorm. Keep in mind that this channel does have a Discord, and I'm going to be starting a 1v1 commander series. So if you would like to play a game against me on the channel, be sure to join the Discord. The link is in the description below, and just challenge me. Literally join the Discord and challenge me to a game of 1v1, and then we'll get everything started and go from there. And it'll be super fun, and you have your own video on the channel. All right, guys? I always say the same things when I end these videos. Always remember, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day. Most importantly, you guys gotta remember to believe in yourself. Have fun with your dragons, guys. I know I'm going to, all right? Peace out, people.